Hey, my friends, welcome back to episode 12, our grand finale for season 1, where we're really discussing the state of leadership in the construction industry and talking about all of the challenges and some of the things that we have before us that we need to think about, that we can prepare for, right? I love this quote that I've heard from one of the generals in our military army who said, you know what, plans, right? P-L-A-N-S, plans are always changing. Right? But they're very useful. Even though you're always changing them, they're useful. You gotta have them. And so as we talk about challenges in our construction industry, you gotta have plans that comes with your leaders. And so in this segment, I really want to talk about what are those things that you need to focus in on, right? And one of those things that we have to focus in on is productivity. And so it's something that we haven't necessarily talked about. We've talked a lot about production. You got to focus and get your leaders thinking about production versus productivity. What the hell is it? What is production versus productivity? Well, I want you to think about this. Most companies, most leaders think from a mindset of production, right? Hey, we got that room done. Yes, great job, right? Or hey, we got the conduit placed and done. Yes, finish, right? Well, hear me out on this, my friends. Production only tells you the past. It tells you where you've been. Oh, look, hey, we got that done, right? But it says nothing for productivity. So oftentimes we're checking things off the box, but we're not thinking about productivity, right? And productivity does something different. Productivity tells me where I'm going and how close I am to getting there. Now, in a tight economy, you want your leaders to be strategic thinking. Right? So one of the skill sets that you have to really master is having them be strategic. And so we offer a course on strategic planning. In season 2, we're launching Foreman University, right? Where we're going to really begin to teach foremen how to think strategically and think about things like productivity planning, right? So with productivity planning, you're thinking about, hey, okay, I see where we've gone. How long did it take us to finish this part of the production? Right? And then how long did it take us to do that? And then how much time did we allocate to finish the entire job? Now, based on that, you can then begin to calculate and say, okay, well, if we continue at this same pace over the next several weeks, we're going to be here by the finish. Now, if you could know that early on in production, my friends, or early on in your job, you are golden. Because now you can make the right adjustments. I want you to think about it from a sports standpoint, right? Coaches are always looking and engaging their team where they are, what's going on in sports, and they're willing to call a timeout very fast if they need to so that they can make corrections and make changes. In construction, oftentimes, we allow things to keep going and it gets so bad to the point that we can't make changes. When it gets that bad, my friends, there's nothing you can do. If you can't catch a job up front, and really begin to track your productivity up front, you are screwed if you wait too long. And somebody may say, well, what's too long? Well, usually if you get to about 40% of that job, research shows, and we've talked to some industry experts, if you get to about 40% of the job and you realize how far you're behind at that point, I don't want to say the word, I want to say but you're screwed if you can't do it. The earlier you can figure this out, the better you can be. Let me give you a real life example. So 3 days ago, we got our roof done at the house. And so this is a residential project, right? So got our roof done at the house and the contractor, said, hey, listen, Alex is gonna do the roof. Cool, got it. Came in to do it. He began to talk to me about profit margins. He found out what I do. I'm always pumping the show. Hey man, you should check out No Bullshit with Alex Willis, the go-to source for leadership development in the construction industry. And he's like, man, wow, I need that because I'm struggling with leaders, right? So we started talking. He already talked about profit margins on the roofing jobs that he's doing. He said, Alex, my margins are very small, very slim, man. So we have to run a tight ship. We got to run a tight ship. We have to get it done because our margins are so small. Got it, right? So hear me out. So here's how this went. So he said, hey, man, the job's going to take us 1 day. We're going to be able to get your entire roof done in 1 day. So I want you to think about this from a production versus productivity, right? Production versus productivity kind of mindset. He said, hey, the total job is going to take them 8 hours. 8 hours, we'll get the total job done. Now, with that being said, sent the crew out, They had the materials delivered the day before the job. So materials came to the house. They loaded the materials up, right? Set them up. And they came up in on a Saturday and they started doing the work, right? Now, as they're doing the work, I'm watching, and I'm like, dude, it is no way they are going to get this job done in 8 hours. Because I'm watching them. I'm watching the efficiency. I'm watching some of the systems and how they're doing things. And I'm like, there is no way they're getting this job done in 8 hours, right? Lo and behold, my friends, by the end of the day, they didn't have the job done. So the project manager comes out and talks to the foreman and says, hey, listen, I see you didn't get it done. How much longer will we need tomorrow, right? Now, here's what the foreman does. The foreman looks around. I think we need about 4 more hours. 4 hours tomorrow, we'll be done with this job, right? They take that at face value. They leave. They come back the next morning. Well, they came back the next morning. My friends, instead of 4 hours, it took them about 10 hours to do the job. Right? So think about that. What the owner of the company had bid out for 8 hours took about 18 hours to do that job. Already behind, knowing that profit margins are very small on this job. Right? So he lost his ass on this job. Why? Well, because of lack of productivity planning. Right? Think about this. He came out to a job and told his foreman, hey, you have 8 hours to do the job. Here's what we find, my friends. As things get tight, and as you have to have great processes in place and great systems in place, you have to do a hell of a job of tracking what you're doing. What do I mean by that? Well, you don't want to give your teams huge blocks of hours like that. Right? And this is just a small job. This is a mini job. So imagine on a multi, 100,000 hour job, right? That's going to get real crazy. But you want to break your hours down into small bite-sized increments, right? Now, the company would have done a better job had they taken, instead of saying to the foreman, hey, you got 8 hours to finish this job, said, hey, listen, you know what? We got 8 total hours, but let's break it down, this job, into bite-sized chunks. Hey, you have 2 hours to set up and prep, right? So we got 2 hours to set up and prep. After setting up and prep, hey, you got another 2 hours to replace any rotten wood that's on the roof. You got 2 hours to do that, right? And then, hey, from there, we got 2 hours to do this. Hey, then we got 3 hours to do this. Hey, and this is kind of how we're going to map out our time. Now, if the foreman had come in with that kind of thinking, with a project broken down into small bite-sized pieces like that, all of a sudden, I'm able to look and see and measure my productivity in small increments, right? Because think about this. If I look up and I see, hey, 2 hours is going by and we haven't prepped and set up yet, I'm able to say, oh shit, we're already behind schedule. Now, at that point in time, within 2 hours of the job, the foreman can look around and call audibles and say, hey, listen, I need more people to get over here to help prep set up because we're already pushing it tight on our deadline. Right? Now, if you're able to track projects like that in small incremental pieces, my friends, all of a sudden now you can begin to look and gauge where we are with the job compared to how much time we allocated to it. And because you're not talking about huge blocks of time, right, which has major error when you have huge blocks of time, because you're talking about smaller blocks of time, your margin for error is smaller. I want you to think about this, right? If they had made observations at 2 hours and messed up at 2 hours, you're not talking about that much of an error, right? Versus 8 hours, or some of the projects that some of you work on, 100,000 hours. So breaking the project down in small bite-sized chunks with hours allocated to that allows us to track production as well as productivity and then guesstimate where we think we're going to end up. So one of those huge skills that you're going to have to drill into your people. You're going to have to change their mindset and change their thinking. Change old school thinking of, I don't pay you to think, to I need you to be a master thinker and strategist when it comes to doing this damn job, right? So one of those major tools that I want you to think about, and we're offering some master level courses, some crash courses on strategic thinking for construction workers, right? That you have to think about so they can kind of start doing that, giving them projects, kind of like the one I just described to you, where they have some mobile training to understand how to practice that, so they come into a job site with that kind of mindset, being very, very strategic. If you can begin to implement just that one skill, it gives you a leg up over the competition because you have your leadership team thinking about what they need to do, how they need to do it, how they need to delegate the job to other people, breaking it down in bite-sized chunks, ultimately being successful as we do it. All right. Now, in the next segment, the foundation, we're going to talk about some foundational skills that you need to add to that strategic thinking. All right. Some things that you need your foremen, your superintendents, as well as some of your journeymen, as well as some of your apprentices thinking about as they begin to work on some of these tighter jobs with tight deadlines, with bigger pressure, bigger stress. In our next segment, we're going to dive into some of those, really begin to paint a clear picture for you of what the foundation of winning looks like. So I'll check you out in the next segment, my friends. Hey, I want to personally thank you for tuning in to No Bullshit with Alex Willis, the #1 go-to source for leadership development in the construction industry. And hey, don't forget to hit play on the next segment.